Hey guys, what's up? In this episode, I'm going to talk about how to get cover band gigs that pay $5,000 or more. This is the Badass Band Leader Show where we talk about how to take your band to the next level, regardless if you're a cover band, you do all originals, or something in between. If you pick up what I'm laying down, if you like what I'm laying down, be sure to subscribe. Okay, so again, we're going to talk about what does it take for a cover band to get gigs that pay 5 grand or more. So you might be thinking, I think that's impossible. Maybe you've never even made close to that kind of money with your band. Well, first of all, I want to help suspend your disbelief that this money is actually out there. Now, if you're living in kind of like a high rent area, somewhere like New York or LA, a 5 grand wouldn't be even close to enough, maybe what your band would normally get paid because you're playing like really high end events. But you're living in an area that's has a very high standard of living, so you're used to making a lot more money than that. So, but if you're in kind of just like maybe the Midwest or wherever you are, you may be wondering how in the world could a band get paid that much? Well, I'm here to tell you that it absolutely does happen, happens all the time. And I'm going to talk about what types of shows that and how to get those. So, just to give you an idea, we just had a booking agent call me just a couple days ago, and we got booked for the third time for a large beer distributor. They're doing their Christmas party, and they booked us for the third time, and the pay is in excess of 5 grand, and plus they're probably paying quite a bit more than that because they have to pay his fee. His fees go on top of what the band would actually make, and there are definitely bands that make even more than this. There's a band that I know of here. I'm by the way, if the first time you've watched the show, I'm in a band called Reverend Barry and the Funk. Reverend Barry is my stage name, and we're an 8-piece band that has a 3-piece horn section, and but we also play bars, nightclubs, festivals. We do originals, but we also do a lot of covers, and we do play corporate events, weddings, stuff like that. And for those gigs, we would get paid. Not all the time are we going to get paid 5 grand or more. We might get paid a little bit less, but but the money is definitely out there. And there are bands that make even more than this. I know back when I first started doing this sort of corporate event thing, about I guess, man, it's probably been 7, 8 years ago. I was fairly new to Florida, and I was in a band that I'll talk about a little bit later. That our one of our biggest competitors in the market, they were getting in excess of $15,000 per show. They had been around for a long time. In fact, I think they're still doing it. I think they're based out of Naples, Florida, but yeah, no, they were big, huge production. But I'm just trying to give you the idea that the money is definitely out there. Um, so let's talk about in this episode what are these gigs, who books them, and more importantly, how you can get them. Okay, so what are these gigs that I'm talking about? Well, it's normally going to be weddings, it's going to be corporate events, charity, gala fundraisers, and other types of private events other than weddings, like anniversary parties, stuff like that. Now, so let's talk about each one of those categories. So for weddings, um, the wedding band market, especially in Florida, just to give you an idea, and this made sense to me after I had done this for a while. I played in a band that played nothing but weddings. Well, we did play some corporate events for about 2.5 years. And in Florida, it's very competitive because this is the destination wedding capital of the world, right? People want to come down here and have beach weddings. And so what we had is we had the advantage or the opportunity to play for people that were coming in from out of state. Well, if you're coming in from out of state and you're doing your wedding down here, and some of these people are actually even paying for their wedding party, and even sometimes the guests to come down here, they're renting rooms. These are people with money, right? And it is not uncommon for these weddings to cost anywhere from $100,000 plus, and so to pay 5, 10 grand for the band, not a big deal. I mean, they're paying more than that for the floral arrangements. Seriously. So, obviously in those types of markets, it's very competitive. They're looking for very high end bands, but the money is definitely there. And you don't have to be in Florida to have that. Obviously, there's weddings that are going on every weekend in any given market. The downside with weddings in Florida, of course, is the summertime. You've got an entire season where it's too hot. People don't want to come down here, so that's sort of the downside with it. Um, but of course, the downside of living in an area where it's super cold, maybe people don't want to do weddings in the middle of December or something, where they definitely would want to do that down here in Florida. So um, the other ones are corporate events. Now, corporate events are really just more just like the name sounds, like the gig that we're doing for the Christmas party for the beer distributor. It's an event for that the company is holding for their employees. Sometimes they have their clients come, and it's a big deal. It's kind of it's something where we've got booked by insurance companies. They have maybe around 100 employees. The beer distributor has a lot more employees than that. Plus, they have all their spouses come, and they rent them big banquet room at the Ritz or something. And they usually do some sort of silent auction, or they'll everybody all the people will get their bonus. That's one thing that we've seen at these corporate events is sometimes everybody waits, so the whole crowd is there. The band plays their first set, and then in the middle of the first set, or when we go on break, they'll give everybody their bonus checks or whatever like that, and then the whole crowd leaves. We literally had that happen this past December, and so the second set there was hardly anybody there, but it happens. You still get paid. The other one would be the charity gala fundraisers. Now I need to make a distinction on this, okay? With the charity events. Now, because you might be thinking, well, I've been asked to play charity events for free, or we have played charity events for free, and that's cool. In fact, I'll probably do a whole separate episode on whether or not you should play gigs for free or for low cost or that whatever. That's not the type of event. There are charity events where it's like a fundraiser for a local person who has been diagnosed with cancer and needs to raise money for their medical funds. That is absolutely something where I think that if your band can participate and wants to do it, man, and help these people because they're reaching out because they have nowhere else to turn, that type of thing. The kind of events that are going to pay, they're charity events that are going to pay a band $5,000 or more, or $3,000, $4,000, whatever. Those are going to be what I call the gala fundraisers for the sort of the high-end charities, right? American Cancer Society. Down here we have the Dick Vitale Association. They do these big charity fundraisers, and so the idea is that they're bringing in people that have a lot of money, and they're trying to they'll charge like $10,000 per table sometimes, and they're basically selling those tables to people, to companies or to individuals, philanthropists who have a lot of money. And of course, down here it's a pretty wealthy area, and these people, they like to donate money, and they like to be in situations where they're around a bunch of other wealthy people. So these charities will come in, and then they'll come in, they'll do like an auction. They'll have like a guy that comes in that's an auctioneer, and he's basically trying to get people to donate even more money. And then at the end of the night, they'll have the band play, right? And these are events where people are showing up in black tie and evening gowns. These are, not always an older crowd, but it typically is, because these are people that have, accumulated a lot of wealth over their life. So, but those are definitely events that can pay bigger bucks. And the reason is because, they're usually having those events at a really high-end hotel, like a banquet room, the Ritz, someplace like that. And so it's considered, they want to have a band that sort of matches that vibe, right? They want to have, actually a lot of times the bigger the band, the more they want to have you. If you have 8 pieces or 9 pieces, you have a horn section, you have maybe a couple different, lead singers, female singer, whatever, or even a couple of them, that's what they want, because they want to give that appearance of, of sort of like, wealth, frankly, for lack of a better word. So those events are definitely out there now. And then the other types of private events can be just like, anniversary parties, stuff like that. And we have gotten hired for those. Those aren't necessarily going to pay like $5,000, but they may pay, in our case, $3,500, $4,000. And those are going to be people, again, these are people that have money, and they don't expect to call your band up and for you to quote them a cheap price, right? Because I've never really had that. Well, I can't say I've never had it in 6 years. Some people call and they really have no clue what it costs to hire a band in a private setting, and I've had it like they're like, oh wow, I didn't realize it was that much, and they're like, and they go look for somebody else. So, okay, so let's talk about who books these types of gigs. Well, sometimes the clients will call you and they'll want to book direct, which is great. But it's been my experience, kind of looking back over time, I'd say almost equally as many times we do get gigs from booking agents. So there are booking agents out there who have corporate connections. And I think especially in a corporate, like if somebody wants to book a band for their company Christmas party, and they know there's going to be 300 people there, maybe there's a certain level of comfort that they have with going through what they perceive to be a professional booking agency, where they can go on that booking agency's website and it has a bunch of different bands listed typically, and all the bands look pretty professional, and then it gives them a level of comfort to talk to an agent who isn't going to be biased to try to sell them a certain band. They're going to listen, hopefully, and they're going to say, well, what type of actor are you looking for? And maybe we can make some suggestions based on our roster. Um, so, but like I said, I get gigs equally. I get people who call us straight out, and then I get gigs through booking agents, and I'll take both. Now, if you've never dealt with a booking agents are great. I don't have any problem with agents. I mean, some people seem to have kind of a hang up with it. It's not. I mean, I've had maybe some minor issues with booking agents, but most of the time, they're definitely people that you want to have great relationships with. You want to pick up their phone, put the phone when they first call. So it's like I was actually shaving the other day when I got the call from the agent about the beer distributor gig, and I stopped in the middle of shaving, and took the call because I knew there was going to be a lot of money at the other end of that phone call. So so definitely if you can get in with a good booking agent, it can be great. There are also agents who, at least in this area, who do kind of specialize in weddings. There's one guy in particular who he's kind of a well-known DJ and MC, but he also books bands, and he has a tendency to book some pretty high-end weddings, and he likes to have a full roster of bands that he can call if somebody says that they're looking for a band. Sometimes in weddings you'll have people that want to book both a band and a DJ, and because they want the DJ to be the MC. Or it's kind of a trend right now. They'll do these afterglow parties, is what they call them. Like the band will play, and then after that, the DJ will take over, and so all the young people can get out there and they can dance to their heart's content until 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So now the only downside I would say with going through a booking agent, and this is not a reason to not try to get with a booking agent, but just be aware of this, is that most of the time you're going to be competing with all the other bands on their roster, right? And so you can't really take it personal. It's something where you just got to accept the fact that because a good booking agent, at the end of the day, they're a sales rep, right? So their job is to sell this prospect something. So they're going to sell them a band or a DJ, right? Or if they have those types of connections, and they're not going to necessarily have a certain loyalty to your band. Their loyalty, frankly, is to themselves and to the client. And so if the client says, we get this a lot because my band plays pretty much music from the late 1960s through the early 80s. We're playing funk, soul, R&B, and Motown, because we have the three-piece horn section. We have a lot of singers who can sing that type of material. We don't do current material, right? I mean, we do some Bruno Mars and maybe a little bit Beyonce, stuff like that. But by and large, most of our stuff is going to be, Earth, Wind, and Fire. We do some disco, like Bee Gees, Jackson 5, that kind of stuff. And, so if somebody calls up a booking agent like that and they're looking for an act that can, well, we want an act that can play all different varieties of stuff, from today's hits all the way back to whatever. Frankly, that's not really our band. So, and most likely the agent is going to have multiple bands who will do just that, right? So, if you're going to be dealing with an agent, just be aware of that situation. Um, okay, so let's talk about how to get these types of shows, either booking direct or through an agent. Okay, so if you want to be in a band that makes in excess of 5 grand or 3 grand or just bigger money certainly than you would ever make in a bar, sometimes typically 5 to 10 times as much as you would make in a nightclub, it's been my experience that that's most likely going to happen if you have a larger band. Not saying that that's always the case, it's just been my experience. So prior to my band's been together for about 6 years. Before that, for 2.5 years, I was in a band that was a 7 piece band that pretty much only played weddings, and but that was kind of the sale, right? Is that we had a big sound, we had a bunch of different vocalists who could sing many different styles, and plus, there's a perception that kind of the more people that you have in the band, obviously the bigger the sound, the more that you can do. It's going to be hard justifying making 5 grand plus when you only have 4 or 5 people in the band. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just saying that there might be something else that you would need to add to that show. Maybe it's a huge light show, or maybe you just have a front man that's just like a total entertainer or something. But there's going to have to be something that's sort of an added bonus to people. Why people? Because you're going to be competing with other large bands, right? Typically. So it's just something to think about. Now, if that bums you out, don't let it bum you out. If you're a 4 piece band or something like that, what you could do in that situation, if you want to kind of put your hat in the running, is you could make a promo video where you do have additional musicians in the video. Maybe go ahead and have a horn section in the video, or you just hire some additional singers or something like that. And obviously, when you book the gig, you show up with all 7 or 8 people. You don't show up with just 4. But you could put yourself out there as a larger band to kind of compete that way. Now, the downside with that is that if you are playing bars now and there's only 4 of you, and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, we'd like you to play our wedding," their expectation is going to be that you're going to be a 4 piece band, and they're probably not going to pay that kind of money, and they're going to be under the expectation that you're going to have a lower rate. So but again, obviously, if you only have 4 people, there's only four mouths to feed, so it maybe all kind of works out in the end. Okay, so now again, how to do this. So the other thing is that your PA and your lighting is most likely going to be considered. It's going to as part of the quote, right? Their expectation when they contact you is that you are going to provide the PA and the lighting. However, there are exceptions to that. With the beer distributor that we're working with, this booking agency actually has his own sound company that he works with. So they're spending money, because that means they're hiring our band, they're paying his commission, plus he's also charging them for sound, and I think they actually use what's called an AV company, audio video company, that even sets up separate, that does like all the announcements. That's where like the people do their keynote speeches and all that. They don't do that typically from the band stage. They do that from like a separate little, like a lectern kind of thing, and they have those little lavalier mics and all that. So again, there's money out there. There's companies that have money and they will spend it at least once a year in a big event. Okay, so again, let's go back to how to get these types of gigs. Okay, if you're the first band that I was in that was doing this 7-8 years ago now, they're still out there, they're still doing it. They made the choice that they were not going to play in public, that they were only going to do these types of gigs. And that is certainly, there's a lot of bands that fit that profile. We typically refer to those as corporate bands, wedding bands. Now, so if that's the choice that you're going to make, if you're going to put yourself out there as like this band that only plays privates and you kind of only exist in that environment, that's when you're having a quality promotional video with excellent audio is absolutely critical. You can't, I don't see how you could ever do this without it. But so once you accept that, the cool thing is that like with this particular band, he knew that from the very beginning. It was a different band leader, and I actually learned a lot from this guy. He just wanted to get into this business. He himself was a great singer, was not a musician, didn't play an instrument. He was a very good-looking guy, so that certainly didn't hurt. But he was also a great businessman, and he knew this concept that he had to have a great promotional video that had to have great sound. So he actually went to a local church, because sometimes, like in this area, and I'm sure probably in your area too, there are churches that have these big giant stages with these enormous light shows, right? It's like a rock concert when you walk in. I actually went to a church with a guy like this. I played in the worship band, and he just came in. I don't know if he paid him or not. He did a promotional video. I wasn't in the band at the time. Came in and did a promotional video on their stage with all their lights and all this. And believe it or not, the band was playing to tracks in the beginning. Most of the tracks that you heard on that original promotional video were not even real. Weren't even real. I mean, they were real instruments, but they weren't played by that band. Yeah, you can call that deceptive, whatever you want, but the sound was great. Now, it was their voices, certainly. So what they did is they basically went in, because he wanted to get it done quick. So he went into the studio, used the tracks that he got off of a website called karaokeversion.com, used the tracks, had the singers sing over the tracks, and then went in and lip synced to that in a video, did multiple camera angles, had all the lighting, all the stuff. They're all dressed in suits and dresses and all this kind of thing. That video went on to become the number one tool that the band used to get these high-end weddings for at least 2.5 years. And I mean, that one video was probably worth $100,000 in the resulting sales that came from it. I'm not kidding around. So again, you can debate whether or not that was a moral thing to do or whatever. You know, the band later on ended up, you know, once it had the core musicians in it that were really good, the band started sounding really great. He kind of switched gears and actually made it to where he filmed the band performing live in front of actual real crowds and took the audio from the mixer. And the band was that tight and sounded that good, and the vocalists were that good that we took the live recordings, tweaked them just a little bit, and used that as the promotional video. So he kind of completely turned it all the way around. Okay, so if you're going to make a YouTube video, and I think this is if you decide you want to do the corporate thing, and you don't even have a band together yet or whatever, I think these are the rules that you need to go by when it comes to YouTube videos for a promotional video. The look of your band is extremely important. You know, and I may be stepping on some toes here, but you know, if you have people that maybe don't look so great on camera, I'm just going to kind of leave it at that to not offend. You know, you may want to do limited camera time. Because again, when you're dealing with brides or whatever that are young people that are spending, their parents are going to fork out $5-10 grand for a band, they're going to judge that. You know, they're going to look at, you know, how old are the people in the band, especially the people in the front, the singers. You know, they're going to look at that. So what you wear, you know, I would definitely, if you're going to be doing corporate gigs or doing wedding gigs, you want to wear suits. You know, or maybe suits that look a little cooler, maybe not without a tie, but, you know, definitely your clothing should be current, right? Or, you know, the band, it should definitely look good. So, and then the other thing would be fast cameras, quick clips is what they call them, so that where the editing on the video, it doesn't linger on anybody too long, because there's a lull in the energy level on the video production if it lingers on any one person too long. So it just needs to, you know, have somebody who does quick clips, and it adds a certain energy and excitement to the video. And just the energy level of the overall band. You know, I mean, they need to look like they're having fun on video, certainly, because that's what's going to be conveyed. If you don't have an actual audience in the video, you need to look like you're playing in front of one, right? So now there's plenty. You can go on YouTube, and I would encourage you to do this, and just look up, you know, wedding band New York City, or corporate event band Miami, something like that. Go into these markets where there's big money, Los Angeles, stuff like that. You're going to see bands that are at the top of their game, right? And if you, especially if you see videos where there's 50,000 views on it or something like that or more, and there are tons of comments or whatever, you'll know. You're gonna see the level that these guys are working at. Some of them are not that great, but some of them are like you're going, wow. They sound like the singers or came straight off like top contestant on The Voice or something like that. They're out there. So, in a way that might be a little intimidating or even depressing, but it just gives you an idea of kind of what you may be dealing with. However, what you might want to also turn around and do is then go into your market and see what the market is. So if you're kind of maybe in the middle of nowhere, maybe you're in Nebraska or whatever, go in and then look for wedding bands Lincoln, Nebraska, or Nebraska, or corporate bands Nebraska, and you can see what the competition is. And that, if you see some bands that are just really not that great, that should inspire you to realize that there's some opportunity out there. Okay, and then another thing with the promo videos, and this is, you can kind of debate on this, but if you're going to put yourself out there as a band that plays multiple genres of music, because that is something that certainly gets asked for a lot. You would, in the video, you can decide, do you want to make a video that's kind of skips around, just doing, you just want to do short bites of each song, um, or do you want to do multiple videos where you show the different, so if you want to do ballads, maybe somebody wants to, want to hear, you have a female singer that can sing Etta James, and then she can go into some other style, but it's mostly ballads, and a male singer that'll do the same thing. I think it's probably better just to do it all in one video and to kind of keep it short. But again, there's lots of ways to do this. Just kind of look and see what's out there. Okay, so switch gears, get off the promotional video. Let's talk about, if you want to get into the high-end wedding market, you're definitely probably going to have to strongly consider advertising on Wedding Wire, The Knot, and Gigmasters. And I can definitely say that Wedding Wire and The Knot, because the thing is about brides, when they say I do, or when they first get engaged, they switch on into wedding mode, right? So now they've got 9 months or whatever until they're actually going to for the big day. They'll spend the next 9 months looking on Pinterest, just constantly looking at this wedding stuff, right? And they will absolutely go to Wedding Wire and or The Knot, and they will look for caterers, dressmaker, all that kind of stuff, and they will look for entertainment. They will look for bands. They'll look for DJs. So it is definitely competitive. But I can say, with especially having been in a high-end wedding band in Florida and knowing the band leader and where he got a lot of his bookings, a lot of them came through those three platforms: Wedding Wire, The Knot, and Gigmasters. Now, they're expensive, but again, it's all relative, right? If you're gonna, I can't remember what they charge, $250, $300 a month, or something like that. Plus, you have to sign a year-long contract. You can easily get 1 gig from it, and you can easily pay for that. So it's all relative. It's not like being in a bar band. Okay, this is stuff where the money is out there, and so you can justify paying that expense. So, but the other thing to remember with these platforms like this, these online platforms, it's competitive. You're going to have a lot of bands on there that, again, have those high-end promotional videos, and if you just don't have the budget to have one that's made really that well, you're going to feel a little intimidated. But those bands, like you can go into Wedding Wire right now, and or The Knot, and you can look up wedding bands in Miami, and there are some bands that are charging $20,000 plus, but there's also bands that are charging $3,000 plus. And there's people on there that are looking at all different budget levels. So if your quality of your video isn't quite up to that level, just don't charge as much, and you're going to be competing in that range. So there's still opportunity to be out there, because the other thing to keep in mind with weddings is that everybody, like, we literally had a situation lately where it was a certain date in May. It was like the first Saturday in May. We had over a period of about 3 weeks, we had 4 separate weddings that all wanted to book us on that date. Obviously, we took the first one, and then we had to tell the other 3 that, sorry, we're booked. In fact, I was trying to find other bands to do those shows. So that's kind of the good news with the wedding market, is there's not a lot of like high-end wedding bands that are out there doing this. and there's a lot of brides that are competing for the same dates. I don't know what it was about that particular date in May, but it's just the date that everybody wanted. So there's not a lot of competition, and there's a fair amount of supply of brides that are looking for this, right? And so even if there's a really high end wedding bands that are out there, and you're like, man, those guys are great. I don't know that we could really compete with them. They're going to be booked, and they can only do one show a night, right? So, you know, don't let that stop you, because, I do know there's another band that was out of Orlando that was a big competitor with us, and they were booked all the time, So we at least had that in our mind that, like, well, we didn't have to think about them too much because chances are good that they're booked. They were booked literally for like a year and a half in advance. So, yeah, so let that be encouraging to you. Um, Now, a different tack that our band does, we do still play weddings, but we do not market ourselves as a wedding band. That's just a choice that we've made, because we have other goals. We do write our own original music. Our goal is to kind of do our originals thing and get rid of covers over time. But that's just what we want to do, and that's just the direction we're headed. So we have not put ourselves out there as a wedding band. So now the kind of the benefit with that, we still get asked to play weddings, but we almost always get asked to play weddings from people who have seen us live. They've seen us in a nightclub environment or a music festival or something like that. The benefit with that is that their expectation is that they're going to get the band that they saw at the bar. And what I mean by that is that they're not going to be into the expectation that you're going to learn a bunch of songs for them, right? Because like in the first band that I was in that was doing this thing, and they just did the wedding band full time, we were all over the map with songs that different song styles that we would play. I mean, we'd play Frank Sinatra, and then we'd play the Bee Gees, and then we'd play, the latest Rihanna tune and stuff like that. I absolutely did not want to do that with my band. I want to stick in the genre that we are great at, and if somebody books our band for their wedding, they know that that's what they're going to get. I might take one request, and even then, it's kind of at our discretion, because like, do we really want to get an 8-piece band to learn one song for one wedding and never play it again? And usually our customers, if you want to call them that, are pretty cool about that. So, all right. So since our band, and I know that there's another band that's kind of similar to ours. It's a 9-piece band. I've talked about them before. The Black Honkies. They get asked to play weddings a lot too, and because they play in public a lot. They play a lot of nightclubs. They play a lot of festivals and things like that. So, um, and again, the expectation is they're going to play what they played at the show, and they're going to show up with 9 people. They're going to show up with a large band. So it's not a sticker shock to them whenever you quote them a higher price. Okay, I do know, and here's another way that you can get booked. This is a unique thing. There's a band out of St. Pete, Florida, that does this. I think they're called the Bay Kings Band. They do regular showcases. Now they very much only do corporate or weddings, and I don't know how often they do this. I don't know a lot about them. I just know a lot of musicians have played with them that I'm familiar with. They advertise heavily on Google. And, so like somebody goes into Google and types in St. Pete Wedding Band, their ad is going to come up at the top. And the way that they do it, I think they probably have a promotional video that I would think they have to. But the way that they get people to, they kind of sell them is that they get them actually to come to, I think it's like a monthly showcase where they rent an actual local auditorium, and they just have all these people come in and watch them perform. But the other thing that I know that band does is they play to tracks. And now you can debate whether or not you want to play to tracks. You may think that that's totally cheesy or whatever. We definitely did it in the wedding band years ago, and because it really helps fill out the sound. It makes the band play on tempo, which I think is critically important. It drives me nuts when I see bands that play either the song either way too slow or especially way too fast, which I see a lot of bands do that. So, but again, with this Bay Kings band, I know that they play to tracks, and they have these long medleys that are put together that, and they crush it. I'm sure that they have medleys that are 6, 7, 8 songs long where they know they play those songs back to back, It's super high energy, and it's going to sound the same way every time. And when they bring those people into that auditorium for that showcase, they're going to give them that experience. And then probably, I would guess that they just come out and they have basically salespeople that come out and just book. You know, people are like, I love this. This is exactly what we were looking for. And they just sign them up on the spot, probably take deposit checks. You know, again, they run it like a business, man, but it's a business that actually, it works. And I know it's been going on for years. The other cool thing about playing with tracks is that if for some reason you need to add or remove instruments, say you don't have a horn section that night or don't have a certain instrument, you just add it back in the track. But that's a topic for another video. So anyway, I hope that this video has inspired you to know first that there is definitely that money is out there. You know, it's competitive certainly, but you know you can get it. Maybe not with your current configuration of your band. You may have to think about, well, you know, we're just mainly doing, you know, standard 3-chord blues tunes or whatever. But if you're a musician or if you're a band leader, maybe you think about putting together something else. You know, it's a big commitment to do it, but the money is there. So if that's where you want to play and you want to make $5,000 plus per gig or $3,000 or $10,000 or whatever, the opportunity's there. So go get it.